In this video, we are taking on a beginner woodworking project that's also a ton of fun. You can sell these things. It's a live edge maple desk. This is gonna be a fun video. Let's go. Okay, so before we start constructing this desk, like I said, this is gonna be really easy. This is truthfully a beginner woodworking project. It's gonna be pretty simple. Before I get into all that though, I wanna talk to you a little bit about this slab and where you can get your slab if you're building your desk. So this slab right now is about 6 feet long and it's a little bit over 2 feet deep. And so now, of course, it's a live edge, so it varies. You know, some parts are 25 inches, some parts are 26 inches, but about a little over 2 feet is kind of a consistent width. This slab is a spalted maple slab. If you see these little gray bits of material inside the slab, that's what makes it spalted maple. That's actually a little bit of a fungus that gets inside of a lot of maple trees, but it does not affect the hardness or the density of the lumber. Typically, your spalted maple slabs are going to be a good bit more expensive than just like a traditional maple slab. But I get why. The contrast in color is beautiful, especially once we put the finish on this thing, which you'll see later in the video. I'll walk you through that entire process. So the main thing you want to make sure of when you get your slab is that you already have it planed or you already have it surfaced. A lot of times if you get slabs, or really all the time, if you get a slab straight from the sawmill, it's going to have a little bit of a cup or it might be twisted. You want to make sure that the slab you purchase is flat. Now, if you purchase it flat straight from the hardware store, it's going to be more expensive. I don't know, it's kind of cheaper to flatten it yourself, but if you're going to flatten it yourself, you either need access to a massive planer, like this is, 2 feet wide, so you need access to a 28 inch or a 30 inch or a 3 foot wide planer, or you're going to want to hook up a router flattening mill. Now, I have one of those in the shop. Crafted Elements makes the one that I have, and it's a great flattening mill. If you have a slab that you need to plane but don't have access to a planer, it will work great. It's just very time consuming, it's very messy, and you have to invest in the mill and the router. So you need to kind of decide, am I going to be doing tons of woodworking projects where I need to plane down slabs like this, or do I just spend a little bit extra money on the slab itself and not have to worry about planing it myself? That's what I've done here, and I'm even someone who woodworks all the time. Sometimes it's just nice to pay the extra $150 and have a slab that's totally flat. Now, you also want to make sure your slab is dry. So we need a slab that's flat. We need a slab that is dry. What do I mean by this? You want to make sure that your slab has had time to cure. This means either it's been put into a vacuum kiln or it's been put into a regular kiln, but even before it can be put into a regular kiln, it needs to cure on its own. Typical rule of thumb is that for every inch of thickness in the wood, is a 2-inch thick slab, it needs a year of dry time before you can even put it inside the kiln. And then a lot of times it takes an extra couple of months inside the kiln. So if you're doing the math on that, this slab, if you don't have a vacuum kiln or access to a vacuum kiln, can take multiple years to dry. If you don't go through this entire process of kiln drying your lumber, what can happen is after you have your slab flattened and it looks really pretty, you finish your desk, you put it in your office, after a while, your desk can start to curl on you, or maybe even worse, you can have insects that you find out later are still living inside of the lumber. You don't want those things to happen. And so once again, if you purchase this from like a hardware dealer, you're more than likely going to get a pre-flattened, pre-dried slab. I just want to kind of walk you through all of that because a lot of videos I see talking about building coffee tables or live edge furniture, they just don't go into that. And those are things that I really wish I knew before I got into making furniture like this. So this slab, it's already flattened, it's already dried, it's pretty much ready to go. So the first step in building our desk is we need to decide which side of the slab we want to be facing up. Now, the general rule of thumb is you want the live edge exposed. So if you think about live edge, typically they kind of have, it's kind of shaped like a trapezoid. You always want the narrow or the shorter side of the trapezoid facing up. So what that does is it reveals this beautiful live edge that is on your slab. Some slabs don't work that way, so you can decide for yourself, but I've already determined that this is the side that's going to be facing up. Now right here you can see that I've been pulling out a bunch of punky wood that is really kind of rotten. I just took some little shaping tools in my shop and pulled all this punky wood out. We're gonna of course fill this in with epoxy, but you don't just want to start by filling this in with epoxy because that might can pop out depending on the way that or how deep your rot goes. So pull all of that out to get it onto solid wood. Then to vacuum that out, you want that cavity to be really, really clean. And then we'll get ready to fill this with epoxy. You can see right here that this epoxy really seeped into the wood. That's okay. This is why you don't want to try and fill an entire void with just one epoxy pour. But now this dried epoxy is basically acting as a sealant. So some of it seeped down to the bottom, some of it filled in right here. And so now when I do my next epoxy pour, it's not going to sink in as much because we already have all of that essentially sealed off. Let's do that second epoxy pour. It's been a little bit over 24 hours since I poured the last pour of the epoxy. It's cured enough to where we can start to do a couple of other things to this desk. I always allow 72 hours with this epoxy before I sand it. This desk, this slab, it's got rough sawn edges right here. So I'm gonna clean these edges up with my M18 track saw. This thing is an absolute beast. If you want to see like a full tutorial, full review on this saw, I have one in the description linked up, and it's also be right up here. But if you're looking to get a track saw, this is the one I absolutely recommend. In my opinion, it's a great balance of features, quality, but also affordability. It's not up there with the Festool in terms of price, but it's a really high quality track saw in my opinion. So what we're gonna do is first start by cleaning up one edge. I already have my line marked right here. And then I'll kind of show you my process to make sure that we get this line exactly parallel to the line at the other end of the desk. It can be a little tricky, so I'll show you some tips there. Let's fire up the track saw. Look at this. That's the rough sawn version of the end grain. That's what we get after the track saw. That thing makes super smooth cuts, and the cut always lines up perfectly with where you place your track. This is gonna look really, really cool. I like that a lot. What I did to make sure that I got this edge and this edge exactly parallel to one another is after I made a cut right here on this edge with my track saw, I then took a square and made a 90-degree line perpendicular to this edge, going all the way down, transposed it with a straight edge, and when I got down to the other end, I used the same square to line up another 90-degree angle here, making these two angles 180, and boom. If you remember from 10th grade geometry class, they're parallel. Take your time with this. You want to make sure that you really get this lined up well. Otherwise, you might end up with a desk that has edges that look like this. And unless you're going for like some kind of funky modern look, that's probably not going to look the best. I'm really excited with how this turned out. The track saw makes it a breeze. I'm telling you, if you invest in that track saw, you're going to love it. It's going to make projects like this so much easier. Up next, what we're going to do is add a round over edge on the end grain of this desk. For the routing, I'm going to be using this beast of a tool. This is the Milwaukee M18 Fuel palm router. Of all the palm routers that I've purchased with my own money, I've used Bosch, I've used Ryobi, and they're great. I still have them and use them, but this is my go-to router, especially for things like this because, I mean, just the fact that it's variable speed and battery powered, I don't have to get out power cords, drop cables, anything like that. This is a 5-amp battery and it powers this thing just fine. I've got a 1/4-inch bit in this router. I'll link it down in the description if you need to pick one up. Helps out the channel when you support using those links in the description, but This is a pretty straight routing process here. I'm gonna do the top and the bottom of the desk. This is gonna be fun. Let's do it. For the sanding of this desk, I had my guy Chris come in and help me because he's like a sanding professional. But what he did was he went 120 with this new 3M sandpaper that I've been using. It works really, really well. I would say at least it works really well. Chris, would you say it works well?
Yeah, I think it works pretty well.
Works great. After he did the 120, he went 180 and then 220. With Odie's oil, which is the finish that we're using, really don't need to go any higher than 220. And just make sure though that you're following those steps in sanding. You don't want to jump from like a 120 straight to a 220. A good rule of thumb is make increases in 50% increments. So 50% of 120 is 60, so add 60 and you get 180, etc., etc., etc. We are almost ready for the Odie's oil, but before we do that, Chris, if you want to show them right here, this is where the epoxy got sanded down. Looks really good, but if you look really closely right here, we have some gaps. And I almost didn't fill those, and then Chris was like, man, that's going to drive you nuts for years. You're going to be using this desk, and you're going to fill these little gaps. And I said, Chris, you're right. So what we're going to use is actually over here, this stuff right here. I don't want to pour epoxy and wait 72 more hours for this to cure before I sand it. I'm trying to get this desk done today. So this is a little product from Total Boat. It's an instant adhesive. They come in like thick, medium, and thin. I'm gonna use the thick one for this. So all I'm gonna do here is just kind of like work this into these gaps. You don't have to worry about dyeing this because you already have the black epoxy underneath. These are the details in live edge furniture that kind of take it to the next level. Once you have all your gaps filled, you have this accelerator right here. I'm just gonna spray this. Also gives you a sneak peek of what this is gonna look like once the finish is on. That's gonna look sick. And let's see if it's dry. It's dry. I'm gonna let it sit for about 5 minutes. And then Chris, are you good to sand that again?
Yeah.
Let's go, let's go. All right, see you in 5 minutes. All right, sanding is done. Hallelujah. Chris did a great job. Chris, great job.
Thank you.
Now it's time for probably my favorite part of any kind of like live edge furniture building process. That's the time to put the finish on this thing. And then we put the legs on, it's gonna be done. So we're gonna be using Odie's oil. I leave a link down in the description of any video where I use this to a starter kit. If you've never used Odie's oil before, get the starter kit. It has all of these materials that you're about to see. It makes applying this finish just a breeze. But before you do anything with the finish, you want to make sure that you get this slab totally clean. So I always like to take a cloth that comes in the starter kit with that Odie's oil and just wipe this down. You don't want any kind of dust getting in the way of your finish. And you can see all of that. Zoom in on that, Chris. You can see like all the little dust particles that are on there that we're getting off the slab. You want to make sure this thing is clean. Don't forget the edges. A lot of dust can hide in the live edge parts of this slab. Chris, that epoxy, bro, it turned out really good.
I know.
Really
it's smooth now.
That's really good.
Not a bunch of little divots.
Dust is off. We're ready for some Odie's oil. So this comes in these little jars. Once you open this thing up, you get these stir sticks. You want to stir this up. This smells amazing, and that's because it's all natural. Also, I know you're probably seeing this jar. I think it's like 8 ounces, and you're probably thinking, it's 9 ounces. You're probably thinking it's not gonna last very long, but we will have plenty of Odie's oil left even after we use it on this project. So you get these little adhesive pads. You can kind of zoom in here, Chris. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna work this Odie's oil into the pad. And I'm not taking a lot. I'm just kind of getting a little bit on the front of that popsicle stick, working it in. The key with Odie's oil is use a circular motion. And we're ready to rock. We're gonna still use a circular motion. I'm just gonna I typically start in a corner and I just start working it in.
That makes it look good.
Oh, this looks,
The color comes
Chris,
out?
this makes the color pop. The key with Odie's oil, Chris, is circles and elbow grease. That's about all I can do. I'm getting tired. I'm gonna turn this over to Chris. I'm gonna let him do this, and I might film him for a little bit. Chris, sound good?
Okay.
Let's do it. Love to see what Chris is doing right here. He's making sure that we put Odie's oil on the bottom of the desk. This is the bottom side, because if you only finish one side, moisture can get in the other side, which can cause warping. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yeah.
What do you say about warping or moisture?
Moisture's a pump. Moisture's a pump. You
Okay.
don't want it in your wood.
Don't want it. Nope. So here we go. You can see we didn't really worry about sanding that down too much because it's the bottom. That's where that epoxy tape was keeping everything together. This is gonna look good. The legs on this desk, we are using some fabricated metal legs from Carolina Leg Company. These things are amazing. You absolutely need to check out Carolina Leg Co. If you're making any kind of project like this. A lot of times, if you want a desk but you want metal legs, learning how to put these together is a whole different skill set. Getting some really high quality legs will make the desk building process much easier, and also it'll just make your final product so great. So these are really high quality legs. We went ahead and put some Odie's oil on these as well, just to have that kind of protective layer. And I'm gonna start getting the layout ready. Chris is gonna help me in a second, but we're gonna get the layout ready for this. A couple of things you wanna keep in mind when you're positioning your legs is that you wanna make sure that these legs have the same offset from the end of your desk, which that's pretty easy. That's just measuring from here. And then you also want to make sure that they're in line, which that's a little bit more tricky because this slab is kind of doing this. It's kind of going at an angle. So we're going to try and keep these legs lined up. If we don't get them lined up, then I blame Chris. That's pretty much a wrap on building this desk. Chris and I are stoked with the way that this turned out. I just love the way that the black epoxy mixes with the Carolina Leg Company black metal legs, maple slab. I don't know. I'm really excited to get this in my office and have a new desk. I'm embarrassed to say that I used an Amazon desk before this one. Anyways, if you've enjoyed this video, thanks for sticking around to the very end. Let me know if you have any questions on this building process down in the comments, and then check out one of these two builds. I think you'll like these videos as well. Can't wait to see you there.